Minnesota is crackling under the presence of ICE and Border Patrol agents deployed to curb illegal immigration. In January alone, the United States' Twin Cities witnessed 2 shootings that resulted in 2 deaths. On January 24th, Border Patrol agents shot and killed an ICU nurse, Alex Pretti, in Minneapolis. According to the DHS, Border Patrol officials, top guns in the Trump administration, and most importantly, the President of the United States, federal agents were acting in self-defense. They claimed Pretti was carrying a semi-automatic 9mm gun and had behaved violently. Several videos emerged afterwards, but none showed Alex pointing a gun at federal officials. However, a new video of Alex Pretti confronting federal agents 11 days before his shooting has now gone viral. The footage shows Alex kicking the taillight of an immigration officer's vehicle, after which agents pin him to the ground. The January 13th confrontation was recorded in 2 videos, showing Pretti yelling at federal officers and struggling with them on the ground. His winter coat comes off during the scuffle, and he then either breaks free or is released before running away. As he turns away from the camera, what appears to be a handgun is visible tucked into his waistband. The footage does not show him reaching for the weapon, and it remains unclear whether the agents noticed it. The newly released footage quickly reignited a nationwide debate over the death of 37-year-old Pretti and gave Republicans fresh ammunition to defend the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. President Donald Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., shared one of the videos on X with a taunting caption, "Just a peaceful legal observer." However, dismissing the Republican narrative, Pretti's lawyer, Steve Schleicher, said the January 13th altercation did not in any way justify officers fatally shooting Pretti on January 24th, AP reported.
A week before Alex was gunned down in the street, despite posing no threat to anyone, he was violently assaulted by a group of Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. Nothing that happened a full week before could possibly have justified Alex's killing at the hands of ICE on January 24th.
Following Pretti's shooting on January 26th, Trump used 2 lengthy Truth Social posts to accuse Democrats of encouraging people to obstruct law enforcement. Rather than calling for calm, President Trump escalated tensions and urged Congress to pass legislation outlawing so-called sanctuary cities. Trump's response, however, did not come as a surprise. After Renee Good was shot by an ICE officer, the president defended the agents, saying, and I quote, "You know ICE are going to make mistakes sometimes."
Think of that. Remove tens of thousands of illegal alien gang members, drug dealers, murderers, child predators, human traffickers, fraudsters, and savage criminals. Why wouldn't you want them removed? The reason is because these are insurrectionists that are doing this work. And, you know, they're going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody, or, you know, they deal with rough people. They're going to make a mistake sometimes. It can happen. We feel terribly. I felt horribly when I was told that the young woman who was had the tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a horrible thing. Everybody would say it. ICE would say the same thing. But when I learned her parents and her father in particular I hope he still is, but I don't know, was a tremendous Trump fan. He was all for Trump, loved Trump. And, you know, it's terrible. I was told that by a lot of people. They said, oh, he loves you. He was I hope he still feels that way. I don't know. It's a hard situation. But her father was a tremendous, and parents were tremendous Trump fans. It's so sad. It just happens. It's terrible.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration moved quickly to portray Alex Pretti as the instigator. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said Pretti approached immigration officers carrying a gun and behaved violently.
Individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently. Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics were on the scene immediately and attempted to deliver medical aid to the subject, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 magazines with ammunition in them that held dozens of rounds. He also had no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement. About hundreds of protesters then showed up at the scene. They began to obstruct and to assault law enforcement officers. We saw objects being thrown at them, including ice and other objects, and a rampant assault began, and even an HSI officer agent's finger was bitten off. Crowd control measures were deployed to bring safety to the public and to law enforcement at the scene. And once again, I want to remind everybody that this situation and this tragedy did not have to happen. Our law enforcement are doing everything that they can to protect the public. We're praying for this deceased loved one's family and friends, but we also recognize that the Minnesota governor and the Minneapolis mayor need to take a long, hard look in the mirror. They need to evaluate their rhetoric, their conversations, and their encouragement of such violence against our citizens and our law enforcement officers. I'll remind you that Governor Walz today in his press conference said that our officers were not even law enforcement, which is a lie. He's called them the Gestapo. He's encouraged residents and citizens and violent rioters to resist. He's doxed their identities, putting themselves and their families' lives in jeopardy. He's refused to turn over murderers to federal law enforcement officers. He's protected illegal criminals and protected them from being brought to justice, and even overseen a historic, unprecedented theft of American taxpayer dollars. Tens of billions of dollars were stolen under his watch, and he allowed it to happen, and in some instances may have even facilitated it.
An angry Minnesota Governor Tim Walz called on President Trump to halt expanded ICE operations in the state following another fatal federal shooting.
I have a strong statement here for our federal government. Minnesota's justice system will have the last word on this. It must have the last word. As I told the White House in no uncertain terms this morning, the federal government cannot be trusted to lead this investigation. The state will handle it, period. Let me say something else, and this is critically important. All of us understand what happened this morning and the tragedy of it, and my deepest sympathies to the family of a 37-year-old Minnesota resident, a lawful firearm concealed permit carrier, something that I've been lectured to by Republicans for decades, that is not only your right, it's your duty. We know that the potential to further inflame tensions is high. And to Minnesotans, there's a difference. We want calm and peace and normalcy back to our lives. They want chaos. We cannot and we will not give them what they want by meeting violence with violence. Minnesota and our local law enforcement, as you have seen, have done everything possible to de-escalate. Local media has reported extensively on the cooperation to de-escalate this situation. Donald Trump, I call on you once again, remove this force from Minnesota. They are sowing chaos and violence. We've seen deadly violence from federal agents again and again and again. But in contrast to that, on these frozen streets, what you witnessed yesterday was the best of Minnesotans, peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights. And I attended in the church basement hundreds of Minnesotans from all faith packing care packages for families that have been ripped apart. Despite the horrific acts by this federal government, Minnesotans are standing up for the rule of law. They're protesting loudly and urgently, but peacefully. It must stay that way, Minnesota. Minnesotans are witnessing, and we're creating a log of evidence for the future prosecution of ICE agents and officials responsible for this. They're helping their neighbors. They're walking their kids to school. They're feeding families. I salute their courage and their restraint, And I call on all Americans to see the decency that this state is exhibiting and the horrific cruelty, unprofessional, absolute abomination that is passing for what these ICE agents are doing on our streets. They think they can provoke us into abandoning our values. Well, they're dead wrong. We'll keep the peace, we'll secure the justice with our neighbors, and we'll see this occupation ends. Minnesotans and Minnesota law enforcement that continuously is being denigrated by this administration will continue to be the adults in the room, the professionals in the room, the decent human beings in the room that will keep the peace.